Have you heard the news? Healing got massively buffed in the 2024 Player's Handbook for D&D 5e. Then why the crap haven't you built a healer support character yet? I know. I waited way too long, but you know what else? Healing got some pretty significant nerfs in 2024 as well that I'm not seeing a lot of people talking about. So the question is, in the end, is healing better now or worse? We are going to break it all down in today's build. So, welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, every week I like to take a deep dive into one specific character build for my favorite role-playing games, usually Dungeons & Dragons. I like to theorycraft about them, crunch numbers about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really powerful, but also really fun to play. So if you also really enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you are thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm so glad you're here, so thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Right, so healing got some major buffs in 2024. Cure Wounds and Healing Word heal for almost twice as much as before. Healers of the world, rejoice. Okay, yeah, this is pretty awesome, but I mean, was the buff to those spells really that big of a deal? I've talked about this a lot on this channel. Generally speaking, the most efficient way to do healing in D&D 5e has been to let your companion go down to 0 hit points and then heal them with like a low-level healing word spell, right? It only takes a bonus action, it can be done from range, and it keeps your ally from dying. For the most part, it's been pretty tough in 5e to out-heal the amount of damage that enemies are capable of throwing out. So just let your ally drop to 0, they're very unlikely to die right away, then pop them back up with a few hit points, and if they get hit again, it doesn't really matter if they get hit for 5 or 50. Just get them to the point where they're not dead. Then, if the enemy takes them out again, no big deal, you just bring your ally back up on your turn, and most of the damage that the enemy did was overkill anyways. So that's kind of the most efficient way to do it, right? It's kind of led to a bit of a whack-a-mole scenario that can feel a little jarring, a little weird, a little video gamey, but it's super efficient, right? I don't love this kind of gameplay, and I'm sure that most of you don't really either. Mostly for that reason, I've made several attempts to build a healer that can actually keep up with enemy damage. Everything from taking advantage of the arguably overpowered Twilight Cleric to making a mostly bard support character that has access to like all of the best spells, right? To even building a character that could only heal using the life transference spell. That one might be my favorite healer I've ever done, by the way, the Martyr. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It's pretty fun, unique, surprisingly effective, I think. And honestly, I think Wizards of the Coast probably dislikes this about as much as, if not more, than most of us do. And I think it's for that reason that they gave a massive buff to Cure Wounds and Healing Word. Yeah, almost doubling the amount that both of these spells can heal at level 1 and then doubling the rate at which they scale as well. It's kind of like they went, you know what? Some people want to play a character whose primary role is to just keep their allies on their feet, to try and keep everyone healthy, always at like half health or better, and never going unconscious. That can be a fun and empowering playstyle, so why don't we try to tweak things a little bit to make it more feasible? And frankly, I'm thrilled that they've done so. It might not necessarily be my favorite way to play a character, but there's something to be said for feeling like
I am such a supreme healer.
Whether because of my holy attachment to my deity, or my own inner spiritual strength, or my connection to nature, or whatever, that no force can harm me or mine while I'm on the battlefield, right? Now, if I'm being honest, I do kind of wish that since they buffed these spells to potentially make it a little easier to keep your allies on their feet, that Wizards of the Coast would have also made going unconscious a little more punishing. Like maybe it applies one level of exhaustion or something to sort of go one step further towards discouraging that kind of whack-a-mole gameplay. I know a lot of other game systems do this. I know a lot of you homebrew stuff like this into your own tables. But regardless, even though, yes, these spells got some big buffs, there have been some big nerfs to healing as well that frankly, again, I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about. Maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places, but one of these nerfs is the change to the healer feat. In the 2014 rules, the healer feat was one of the best ways to heal allies, often outdoing spellcasting. It let us use a healer's kit to restore a whopping 1d6 plus 4 plus the character's level in hit points. Now, granted, we could only do this once per short rest per ally, right? So it wasn't spammable, and And sure, you had to keep a lot of healer's kits on hand, but depending on character level, that amount of healing would be comparable to even a 2024 new and improved Cure Wounds spell. In 2024, the healer feat got massively reworked so that it just lets you heal a creature if they spend their hit die, and for a lot less. Just the hit die plus your proficiency bonus. It's still not a bad option for triage in a pinch, but it's potentially a big blow to the healing powers of a build, especially something like my old combat medic, who tried to be like the best non-magic using healer that they could be. There was another nerf that hit one particular subclass, arguably pretty hard. The Life Cleric's Disciple of Life ability used to let you add a bonus to the healing from spells anytime you used the spell. Now it specifies that the bonus only comes on the turn that you cast the spell. This greatly reduces the efficacy of things like casting a first level good berry spell that could heal for 40 hit points total for all 10 berries, right? Or using Aura of Vitality, an already great spell, to heal for an extra 50 hit points over the duration of the spell. So on the one hand, the buff to those basic healing spells has seen some dramatic improvement, but on the other, for some builds anyways, do the nerfs outweigh the buff? Has the total healing potential of a healing focused character been reduced or increased? I, for one, am dying to find out. So let's dive in to D&D episode number 189, the Celestial Rejuvenator, the Celestial Healer, the Stellar Healer. Ooh, I really like that one, actually. Big thanks to my channel members for all the fantastic suggestions here, as always, but I think for reasons we'll discuss, I probably just have to go here with the Ultimate Healer 2.0. Huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he did for this build. He does this every week. Man, this one's good. I love kind of the weaving of the spell effect, right, around the character. If you'd be interested in checking out Randall on social media to see the other stuff that he's done, or potentially reach out to see if you could commission him to create some art for your character or even your entire party, I'll put links in the video description as always on how to do so. And also first, I am thrilled, you guys, to have Obvious Mimic as a sponsor for the video again this week. Today, I especially want to highlight their new solo D&D adventure that is in Kickstarter now, at the time that this releases, just in time for Halloween. The Mystery of Witchhaven. Was game night canceled? Are you the forever DM? Or do you just want to test out one of the myriad characters that you've built that you never have a chance to play? In case you didn't know, with Obvious Mimic, you can, without help from anyone. Obvious Mimic makes D&D 5e solo adventures for anyone who wants to play more, but might not always have people to play with, or could use a break from people for that matter. The Wolves of Langston was Obvious Mimic's first murder mystery solo adventure, which I've talked about. It's so cool. The Crystals of Zaleth was their second, a classic adventure of exploration, discovery, and survival where you uncover the mysteries of a hidden city. The Secret of Oki Island was their third, a swashbuckling piratey adventure. All of these are available for purchase, and now they're coming out with a fourth, and it looks like it's going to be the best one of all. It's going to be called The Mystery of Witchhaven. And again, it's in Kickstarter right now. This is a story of ancient magic, superstition, and hidden evils, where you explore a village beset by a curse. There's a mysterious threat that is stealing children in the night, and you are here to stop it. This looks like kind of part Over the Garden Wall, part Midsummer Night's Dream, and 100% witchy Feywild horror. I love it. And yeah, just like all of their solo adventures, you will be leveling up, interacting with NPCs, role-playing, helping to craft a story, finding loot, and fighting monsters. But all at your own pace and on your own schedule. So please go back The Mystery of Witchhaven before the Kickstarter ends. I'm putting a link in the video description, but I'm also going to put a link to their main site so that you can check out their other adventures too. I would appreciate it if you would use those links so that they know I sent you. And as always, if you use the discount code Colby10 at checkout off of their main site, right, you'll get 10% off your order. Oh, and I'm even going to put a link to their Patreon. Check them out there to support them and to get monthly solo adventure shorts. Nice. Okay, huge thanks to Obvious Mimic. You guys rock. Let's jump into the build. At level 1 for our starting class, yes, probably unsurprisingly, we're going to start Cleric, and we are going to be mostly Cleric today. I think there are plenty of other great classes for healing in the game, but I do still think that Cleric is probably the best, depending on your subclass. And yes, today's build is going to have a lot in common with the Ultimate Healer build that I did almost a year ago, but I need to know if our healing potential is as great now as it was then with all of the changes. enough has changed that it will alter the spells that we're using, some of our tactics, the way that we build and play the character a little bit, so I think it warranted a 2024 update. As for our species, we are going for the first time yet in 2024 with ASMR. I really, really love this race. They might be my favorite, honestly, right up there with elves. I know, boring. But ASMR have so many cool things going for them. Dark vision, necrotic and radiant resistance, the light cantrip, their transformation that they get as early as level 3 is kind of their banner feature, right? Letting you do extra damage and gain one of 3 forms that let you do cool things like fly, do AoE damage, or frighten enemies. And unlike in 2014, we can choose a different transformation every time we use the feature, which we can do once per day. That's super cool. But the main reason that we are here, of course, is for the Healing Hands ability, which lets us touch a creature and heal them for a number of d4s equal to our proficiency bonus once per day. It's not massive healing, but it's not nothing. And on this build, we are going to be looking to get as much healing as possible. So it's a nice little addition to what we'll have at our disposal. For our background, I'm going to say, as always, go with the old or custom background if you can, but if you can't, just take the Hermit background. It gets us the ability score increases we want and one of the 2 origin feats that I'm most interested in. The primary one is, yes, Healer. Wait, you're still taking this feat? I thought it got nerfed to the ground. I am, but I don't think it's a no-brainer by any means. I just think it will be nice to have in a pinch if we just want to top someone off or save our spell slots, or maybe we're out of our spell slots. I mean, we're no longer limited to using it just once per short rest per ally, but yeah, it heals for a lot less and uses up an ally's resource, their hit dice, that they otherwise would be able to use to heal themselves anyways, right? And they might be using that hit die to heal for less here, since it's going to be their hit die plus our proficiency bonus, as opposed to their hit die plus their constitution modifier if they were to use it during a short rest, right? So depends on the character, depends on our level. Regardless, I wouldn't blame you at all for going for the other feat that I'd really love to have here, Musician, which lets you give your entire party heroic inspiration after a short or long rest. That's so good. And especially for a support-minded character, right? But if you're not going with a custom background or taking an old one that you can customize, you can only get that feat via the Entertainer background, and those ability score increase options for Entertainer aren't great for us. So if you don't want the Healer feat, I'd say go ahead and take Sage instead to get the Magic Initiate Wizard feat. But anyways, for our ability scores, I assume we go the point buy method as always and say let's get a 15 Wisdom, take a +2 there, a 15 Constitution, and a +1 there, and then a 14 Dexterity, mostly for armor class. As for equipment, let's start off with a scale mail armor and a shield. That's really all we need. You might want to pick up a staff or quarterstaff and just your other necessities, of course. But then as a cleric 1, we get the cool new Divine Order feature, which says that we can choose to either be a protector, granting us heavy armor and martial weapon proficiency, or a thaumaturge, which lets us pick an extra cleric cantrip and add our wisdom modifier to our arcana or religion checks. We'll take the latter, I think, for a little more versatility and utility, since we don't plan on using martial weapons or heavy armor. It'd be nice, but we're dumping strength and I don't want to be slowed down by wearing it, right? So thaumaturge it is. As for what spells to take, I'm gonna say go for the usual suspects here. Guidance to add a d4 to skill checks, Spare the Dying to stabilize an ally if you just can't heal them for whatever reason. Toll the Dead is a nice ranged damage option. Bless is probably what we'll be concentrating on, at least for these first few levels, as it gives a d4 to the attacks and saves to 3 party members. So dang good. And then, yes, of course, Cure Wounds and Healing Word. Now, Cure Wounds used to be one of those spells that was meh. It only heals for a little bit more than Healing Word, and it requires a touch and your action, whereas Healing Word is a bonus action and can be cast from 30 feet away. But nowadays, I really kind of want both, because both of them doubled the dice you roll when you cast it. Healing Word went from 1d4 plus wisdom modifier to 2d4 and scales up by 2d4 more for every level you upcast it. And similarly, Cure Wounds went from 1d8 to 2d8 plus your wisdom modifier and scales by 2d8 more every level you upcast it. So yeah, even as a level 1 spell, Cure Wounds is now going to heal for 12 hit points on average, compared to Healing Word's 8. That might not seem like a lot, but at this level, it kind of is. And the gap between them will only get bigger. Before moving on, I just wanted to give a really quick shout out to my channel members. You guys Thank you so much for your support. I could not do this without you. You are amazing. If you're not a member of the channel, I'd love it if you'd consider joining. There's a button down there that says join. You click on it, it'll tell you the benefits that you could get by being a member, including access to the library of write-ups that I do for each of these builds, so you could recreate it a little more easily yourself without having to rewatch the video, right? Access to the community Discord server, even access to the monthly live Q&A hangout sessions that we do. We have a lot of fun together, and it's great to interact with my community members, but if you can't do that or aren't interested in it for whatever reason, that's fine. Just being here and liking and watching and subscribing and clicking the notifications bell, these are also great ways to support the channel, so thanks for doing any and or all of those things. At level 2, all clerics get Channel Divinity. We can use it twice per day, and we get 1 use back on a short rest now. I love the way that they've done this with most core class abilities now. We gain additional uses per day with more cleric levels. For now, we can use it to do one of 2 things. Turn Undead, that classic cleric ability, right, which forces undead within 30 feet to make a wisdom save or be frightened of you now and incapacitated, and forces them to spend their turn just running away from you for 1 minute or until they take damage. Super strong for those times that you need it. But if you don't ever fight any undead in your campaign, no worries, you can still use Channel Divinity for Divine Spark, which either heals for a d8 plus your wisdom modifier, like the old Cure Wounds spell actually, or deals that much necrotic or radiant damage to an enemy who fails their constitution save against it, half on a save. Thankfully, this scales by a d8 at cleric levels 7, 13, and 18. So it's not a ton of healing, but it's not nothing, and one more tool in our healer's belt that we'll be happy to take advantage of occasionally. At level 3, clerics get their subclass now, and surprising no one, I would guess we're taking the life domain, of course. It is just so good for those who want to be strong healer. Let's read what Wizards of the Coast has to say about life clerics now. Soothe the hurts of the world. That feels like a tall order. The life domain focuses on the positive energy that helps sustain all life in the multiverse. Clerics who tap into this domain are masters of healing, using that life force to cure many hurts. Existence itself relies on the positive energy associated with this domain, so a cleric of almost any religious tradition might choose it. This domain is particularly associated with agricultural deities, gods of healing or endurance, and gods of home and community. Religious orders of healing also seek the magic of this domain. That feels really nice and cozy for this crisp fall day. So, as a life cleric, we get 2, well 3 if you count the spell's features. Disciple of Life says that when we cast a spell to restore hit points to a creature, so our ASMR and even Divine Spark abilities wouldn't apply here, right, but just spells, then we heal for a little extra, 2 plus the spell level. But, as I've said, one big change from 2014 here is that this bonus only applies on the turn that you cast the spell. Now, that's honestly not going to impact too many spells, but like I said, spells like Goodberry and Aura of Vitality that can potentially heal after the turn that they were cast, right, get hit pretty hard here. And that might outweigh the Cure Wounds and Healing Word buffs for those of us who are life clerics anyways, and might be casting those spells. We still get Preserve Life here as well, another way to use our Channel Divinity, which costs our action and lets us pick any creatures within 30 feet of us who are bloodied. That's an official condition now, right? That just indicates when someone is at half of their hit points or less. And then we can restore hit points to those creatures equal to 5 times our cleric level, divided up among the bloodied creatures as we see fit. Unfortunately, we still can only heal a creature up to half of their hit points. So if it would put their hit points at even 1 more over half, then the healing doesn't apply, right? So this feature ends up being really great as an oh crap, we're all gonna die, break glass in case of emergency kind of thing, but less useful as a way to just keep our allies kind of topped off. That's okay. We've got plenty of those kinds of things. So this will be, again, a nice tool to have when we really need it. We do get 2nd level cleric spells now, and life clerics get all of the best healing and support ones for free, or most of them anyways. Cure Wounds, Bless, Aid to increase the maximum hit points of 3 party members and heal them 5, and Lesser Restoration for a little condition curing. Other than those, I'd just say be sure to grab Warding Bond here. It's so good at raising the armor class and saving throws of your favorite ally by 1, and also giving them resistance to all damage, though you take as much damage as they do when they take it. So it's just like splitting the damage between you, right? Still a fantastic protection spell that lasts an hour, doesn't require concentration, and frankly, once we hit level 6, we're not going to mind taking damage so much, so I would use this liberally, especially later when I had plenty of spell slots to spare, right? At level 4, we get our first general feat, and I want to take Warcaster. Yeah, you're going to see me using Warcaster a lot more than I used to, thanks to the fact that it's a half feat now, letting us bump our wisdom to 18, as well as giving us advantage on our concentration checks, even letting us use somatic components for spells with our hands full, and also cast a spell instead of make a weapon attack when a creature leaves our reach. You'll notice that I said creature there. Do I address the using this to cast a beneficial spell on an ally here? Do I really want to open myself up to more angry comments? Sure, why not? Okay, so yes, I talked about this briefly in a past video, can't remember which, and I got a surprising amount of angry retorts, surprising to me anyways. I mean, or maybe they weren't that angry. We have a tendency as humans to read even constructive criticism as mad or belittling or angry, even if the person writing it might have been totally calm and cool and hedging. Alas, tone and body language are a lot harder to convey in the written word, hence emojis, people. Anyways, yeah, okay, so a lot of people are saying that thanks to the way that the description of an opportunity attack no longer says that the creature moving out of your reach has to be hostile, like it did in 2014, it now just says that when a creature moves out of your reach, you can attack them or even make an unarmed strike against them, which could include shove, right? So now people are arguing that if you've got Warcaster, you could now say cast Cure Wounds on an ally as they ran past you using your reaction, or heck, haste, or something else, right? Or yeah, shove them, even if you didn't have Warcaster, to get them to move just a little bit further. And sure, rules as written, you could totally do that. I am still like 99% convinced that this was unintentional on Wizards of the Coast part, and that one day they're going to errata this. It just seems so counterintuitive to call something an attack of opportunity when it is a beneficial thing that you are doing to your friend. I don't think it was their intent to allow this. I think that they just didn't think this one through very well. And it wouldn't be the first time that something slipped through the cracks, right? But hey, I could be absolutely wrong. And that's fine. And even if I'm right, until they errata it, sure, it works, rules as written. So go ahead and heal or buff your allies as they run past you without having to use your action to do so. I know we won't be playing it that way at my table. I know the dungeon dudes aren't planning on doing that, as per conversations I've had with Monty, at least until someone from Wizards of the Coast comes out with an official working as intended statement. But if you are, congratulations. And as always, feel free to argue about it in the comments if you'd like. It's great for the algorithm. Moving on. At level 5, we get Sear Undead. And I like this so much more than the old Destroy Undead, since it now just works on all undead regardless of their challenge rating. Now, when we use Turn Undead, creatures who fail their save against it also take radiant damage equal to a number of d8s equal to our wisdom modifier. That's 4d8 damage right now, not bad at all. And that damage doesn't end the Turn Undead effect, of course, which is great. And then there's 3rd level cleric spells, and we get some doozies. Mass Healing Word and Revivify for free as a life cleric, both spells that we'd probably take anyways. And again, Mass Healing Word got its dice doubled, so it's 2d4 plus our wisdom modifier in healing to up to 6 creatures that we can see within range. Nice if we've got like multiple downed allies, right? And don't have Channel Divinity available. Though important to note that they decided not to double the scaling on this one, keeping it to just an extra d4 per spell level. And yeah, I mean, Revivify is great, of course, in case an ally actually dies, though with this build, it's a little difficult to imagine that actually happening, unless we get incapacitated somehow, or our friend just jumps off a huge cliff or something. But aside from those, while sure, Dispel Magic is great, Spirit Guardians is like every cleric's favorite spell, for healing purposes, I need to talk about 2 here. Aura of Vitality and Beacon of Hope. It used to be that, as a life cleric especially, Aura of Vitality was like the no-brainer go-to spell for concentration, if we're just looking for raw healing power, right? But with the buffs to Cure Wounds and Healing Word especially, could Beacon of Hope supplant it as like the best healing spell to be concentrating on? The spell itself, Beacon of Hope, hasn't really changed. It still also requires concentration, says the allies affected by it have advantage on both wisdom and death saving throws. That's pretty great in and of itself. But also, those allies heal the max amount anytime they get healed. And no, it doesn't just have to be healing from spells, it's any healing, right? And yeah, thanks to the buffs to Cure Wounds and Healing Word, this spell is better than ever now. It used to be that with Beacon of Hope active as a life cleric, Cure Wounds, if cast at the 3rd level, would heal for 33 hit points on average. That's pretty good, but probably only, like half of a 5th level character's hit points? Maybe more, depending on the character. But thanks to the fact that we're rolling a lot more dice for Cure Wounds now with Beacon of Hope active as a life cleric, a 3rd level Cure Wounds spell would heal for 57 hit points. That's going to bring most allies up to full, or nearly so, even if they're unconscious at this level. And Healing Word is going to do what Cure Wounds used to do, 33 hit points, probably about half health for most of your allies at this level. That's kind of amazing. So yeah, you could throw Beacon of Hope up at the start of the fight and just watch your enemies rage as you heal through pretty much any damage they can do, at least until you run out of spell slots. And also, don't forget, Beacon of Hope works for any healing. So your ASMR Healing Hands heals for 12 flat damage now. Your Divine Spark would do 12 as well. Okay, fine. You should probably save your Channel Divinity for Preserve Life, since it would potentially heal 25 total hit points at this level, so long as the target or targets were low on health anyways. Point is, we get a ton of mileage out of Beacon of Hope, more now than ever before, and I love it. That said, despite the fact that we only get to add our Disciple of Life benefit to Aura of Vitality on the round that we cast it, it just heals for so much more over the 10 rounds that it can potentially last, at least at this level. And the spell itself got a really nice buff. It still requires concentration, lasts for 1 minute, and lets us heal 2d6 once per turn to someone within 30 feet of us, but the healing doesn't even require our bonus action anymore. We just heal when we cast it, and then again every round for a minute at the start of our turn. So when you do the math, the reality is that despite the Disciple of Life nerf, this spell still puts out more total healing than Beacon of Hope would at this level, even though Beacon maxes out the healing of all of those Cure Wounds spells we might be casting. The way I think about it is like this. If you need a little bit of healing here and there, maybe some Healer's Kit uses and a little 2d6 every round with an occasional Cure Wounds or something, go for Aura of Vitality. If you're anticipating a big fight with lots of heavy hitters and you've got a bunch of spell slots to spare, Beacon of Hope is probably the way to go to help you deal with big, spiky damage that an enemy might be throwing down. And hey, in the end, being in a place where you might want to use one spell for one kind of situation and another for another kind of keeps things interesting for us, right? Okay, moving on. At level 6, as a life cleric, we get the Blessed Healer feature, which basically gives the benefit of Disciple of Life to us as well. So when we cast a spell to heal someone else, it heals us by 2 plus the spell's level also, making Warding Bond even better to have up at all times, right? Though, be warned, this will likely lead to a lot more concentration checks on our part. Good thing we've got Warcaster and a 16 Constitution, I guess. Anyways, at level 6, it is time for not a damage report, but a healing report. I've always paused here, even for support, control, and healer builds, just to kind of take stock of where we're at and what we can do. I've never put all of my healing and support builds into any kind of comparative spreadsheet with graphs. Maybe I will one day, but I do think it's fun to just kind of try and calculate how much total healing we could do on this build if we exhausted every single resource available to us over the course of an adventuring day, using those resources as efficiently as possible. I'm going to assume in combat healing here, so I'm not going to count things like Prayer of Healing, right? So right now we've got 3 3rd level spells, 3 2nd level spells, 4 1st level spells, 3 uses of Channel Divinity, and 1 use of the ASMR's Healing Hands. Let's say, for sake of argument, that we had 3 combat encounters during a day with 1 short rest and used Aura of Vitality for each encounter. It's just going to look better on the spreadsheet if we're calculating total healing we could potentially do. Our other spell slots we're just going to use for Cure Wounds, as it is the most efficient healing spell that we've got in combat. We'll also assume that every time we use our Channel Divinity, we get the maximum use out of Preserve Life. People are getting bloodied often. These are tough fights. And also that we get the maximum use out of our Blessed Healer ability, because we're going to take consistent damage as well, I guess. What about the Healer feat? How often am I going to assume that I'm using that? Just max out everybody's hit dice for an entire day? That seems not right. I mean, we're just borrowing from Peter to pay Paul in this situation anyways, using their hit dice, right? But I do want to know how much healing we could be doing in combat. And combat healing is generally more valuable than short rest healing anyways, right? So let's just say that we're going to use it once per ally per combat encounter. And I'm going to assume that each ally has a D8 hit die, just to keep it simple. Under the above assumptions, if you add everything together, and check the spreadsheet that I've linked in the video description if you want to see the breakdown, we're going to get 166 hit points of healing from just our first and second castings of Cure Wounds, 8 more from the ASMR Healing Hands, 90 total from the Healer Feat, 120 from 4 uses of our Channel Divinity. Again, I assumed 1 short rest, so we'll have 3 because we got 1 more use of it at level 6, right? Plus 1 that we recover on a short rest, and 240 from Aura of Vitality, 70 for the 2d6 plus 10 rounds, the first round that we cast it, right? 5 for an ally, thanks to Disciple of Life, 5 for us, thanks to Blessed Healer, for a grand total of 624 hit points of healing over 3 combat encounters. Okay. That's pretty great. Over 200 hit points of healing per combat encounter. That should be enough to keep your entire party, including yourself, from ever going down, right? Depending on how bursty the enemies are, I suppose. That said, you might notice that it is significantly less than what the Ultimate Healer 1.0 build could do at this level under the same assumptions. I put those numbers in the same spreadsheet that I've linked to down below, so you can compare them if you want. But yeah, we're doing about 100 less total healing now. Dang. So did healing actually get nerfed, not buffed? Obviously, that depends on the build. I'd probably say for life clerics, it might be a little worse, at least at this level. And for those who were using the healer feat, it got nerfed. We were getting a lot of mileage out of that healer feat. But for everyone else, it's better. And we also have a much better way to mitigate massive spike damage from enemies thanks to the combo of like buffed Cure Wounds coupled with Beacon of Hope, right? Okay, so let's not get too down here. I have a feeling that it is going to scale really well. Let's find out. So at level 7, with our most important life cleric features secured, I think we multi-class into Druid. There's some fairly low-hanging fruit in Druid to give ourselves a nice healing bump, and in our quest to be the ultimate healer, I think we've got to go for it. So let me know why your priest of a goddess or god of healing might decide to pursue a more nature-oriented path here. Maybe the goddess we worshipped was already both a goddess of life and nature, and she wants us to increase our knowledge of not just the divine, but the natural order of things. Maybe we just want to take a more homeopathic route in the way we heal and cure. I don't know. But yes, whatever your reasons, we are going to be a Druid 1 now, meaning that we learn Druidic, first of all. That's that special language that Druids can use to leave signs for one another in nature, right? And then we also, similar to clerics, get a new feature at Druid 1. Ours is called Primal Order, which lets us choose to either be a Warden, so we can be proficient in medium armor and martial weapons, no thanks, or a Magician, which gives us an extra Druid cantrip and lets us apply our Wisdom modifier to our Arcana again, or nature checks. Nice, we've got a pretty healthy heaping of decent skill checks now. As for Druid spells we should be taking, I'm going to say focus on things that we couldn't get from Cleric, right? Goodberry, of course, gives some nice healing and utility, though it's a lot less good for us than it used to be, pun intended. It's kind of like a medium berry now. Mid-berry, meh-berry. But sure, Shillelagh isn't half bad if we wanted to grab a quarterstaff and have some okay bonking options using our Wisdom modifier to hit and damage, and that scales now, so it's not bad. And we've got Warcaster, so not too worried. Starry Wisp is a fun new Druid cantrip, letting us do a little damage and then lighting up the enemy you hit with it and keeping them from going invisible. Entangle is a decent little control spell, potentially restraining enemies. Jump got a really nice buff, just letting the person you cast it on have a 30-foot jump distance if they move 10 feet first. No concentration, can even be upcast. Don't forget though, now that we are multi-classing with a full caster, we do have a 4th level spell slot at this level too. At level 8, we would be a Druid 2. That means we get Wild Shape. I'm not planning on using Wild Shape to actually turn into a beast much, so I'm just going to mention that yes, like Channel Divinity, we now get 2 uses of this per day, but get 1 more back on a short rest, and we get more uses of it with Druid levels. By default, we can use it to transform into a beast of 1/4 challenge rating or lower, gaining temporary hit points and the beast's physical stats and abilities, etc. We also could spend a use of Wild Shape or a spell slot for the Wild Companion feature, which lets us summon a familiar, like via the Find Familiar spell, though ours is a Fey and lasts until we take a long rest, or it dies, of course. But who would be targeting my poor defenseless, innocent familiar? Okay, this feature is actually a pretty big deal for us, I think. I wanted it so badly that I was considering taking the Magic Initiate Wizard just to get this spell. But since I knew we were going to get Druid levels later, I decided to be patient. Because, you see, something that a lot of us forget sometimes is that the familiar can deliver touch spells that we cast with their touch, right? And for those of us planning on casting the greatly improved Cure Wounds in combat, that's kind of really awesome. Sometimes you just can't quite get to an ally who's on the other side of the fight to touch them in order to get Cure Wounds off, right? And while sure, Healing Word can be done from range and with a bonus action, so it's super nice, if you could send your Owl familiar with a 60-foot fly speed over there to give a much bigger heal than Healing Word, well, that's pretty cool. Now, the familiar does have to use their reaction to cast the spell, and so rules as written, I don't think you could cast a touch spell on your turn and then have the familiar use their reaction to both move and cast the spell with their touch, right? They'd need to already be in range of the ally. But I can see you just sending a familiar to hang out with your squishiest or most damaged ally, or the one who tends to be fighting far away from you, etc., and just say, look, hang out in this friend's backpack. You're going to be their healing battery. And then when need be, use Cure Wounds on the ally, cast it via the familiar. They can pop out of the backpack, peck your friend on the shoulder, and boom. Pretty useful way to get that bigger healing power to more allies on a spread out battlefield, yeah? Okay, at level 9, we would be a Druid 3, and that means, yes, we get our subclass like all classes, and we are going with, my favorite Druid subclass, the Circle of the Stars. It's just so cool, and so flavorful, and fun, and potent as well. Let's read what Wizards of the Coast has to say about them in 2024. Harness secrets hidden in constellations. The Circle of the Stars has tracked heavenly patterns since time immemorial, discovering secrets hidden amid these constellations. By understanding these secrets, the Druids of this circle seek to harness the powers of the cosmos. Okay, nothing wrong with short and sweet. As a Stars Druid, we get 2 features here. The first star map tells us that we get a tiny star chart that lets us have the Guidance and Guiding Bolt spells prepared when we hold it, and that we can cast Guiding Bolt, Wisdom modifier times per day, for free without spending a spell slot. It'd just be at the first level in that case, right? And that's kind of nice. Something to do once in a while if we need a little bit of damage. The better feature here is the Starry Form feature, which tells us that with a bonus action, we can spend a use of our Wild Shape to take on a cool, star-filled, constellation-y form that grants us special powers. We can choose between 3 options here. Archer lets us use a bonus action to make a nice ranged attack. Dragon Form lets us treat all intelligence, wisdom, and concentration check rolls lower than a 10 as a 10. That's awesome. And then our favorite, of course, for this build, Chalice Form, which says that whenever we cast a spell that uses a spell slot to restore hit points to a creature, we or another creature within 30 feet can heal for a d8 plus our wisdom modifier. Just that much more healing to pile on to our already really impressive healing abilities. It's freaking awesome, and I love that we can use that extra healing to top off someone else other than the target we're casting the spell on if we want, meaning a single healing word or cure wounds that we cast could potentially heal 3 people. The target of the spell, ourselves, thanks to Blessed Healer, right? And then a third party member now, thanks to Chalice Form. So potent, so versatile, I love it. We get 2nd level Druid spells here, and again, focus on spells that the Cleric doesn't get. Hold Person for some really strong humanoid control. Pass Without Trace for a really great stealth buff to your entire party. Gust of Wind can be useful to disperse noxious fumes, or maybe even put flames out, etc. But yeah, just pick your favorites here. Don't forget, we do get a 5th level spell slot at this level now too, thanks to multi-classing. Okay, at level 9, let's check in again for a healing report. Since last check, we have increased our spell slots up to level 5, picked up a very nice additional d8 plus 4 of healing every time we cast a healing spell, and gained lots of fantastic utility and control options as well. But also, guess what? Thanks to all of the extra dice we could potentially be rolling with all of our higher level Cure Wounds spells, not to mention the extra dice being added to each spell from Chalice Form, at this level and going forward, we actually get more total healing out of Beacon of Hope than we would Aura of Vitality. And I kind of love that, honestly, because it mixes things up just a bit and also gives us bigger, more spiky, awesome heals. If we just used all of our spell slots outside of 3rd level spells, right, which we're going to save for Beacon of Hope, for Cure Wounds, you would be getting 706 hit points of healing just from Cure Wounds. I'm by no means recommending that you do this, but consider a 5th level Cure Wounds spell for us with Beacon of Hope active heals 110 hit points of damage on average. Some of that 7 hit points comes back to us, right? Some of it's from Chalice Form and could potentially be given to someone else. But I mean, the heal spell, which is oft lauded as an incredibly efficient heal spell, right? Which it was, frankly, in 2014, it was one of the best spells. As a 6th level spell, it heals for 70 hit points, 40 less total than a 5th level Cure Wounds here. Now, sure, Heal also cures Blind, Deaf, and Poison, and I'm assuming that we're consuming a 3rd level spell slot as well, Beacon of Hope. You know, using a 5th level spell slot for Cure Wounds isn't quite the holy crap, why would you do that it used to be, right? Especially if you've got Beacon of Hope active. If you add everything else up that we're potentially doing here, healing from using a healer's kit once per combat, once per ally, which also benefits from Beacon of Hope, by the way, and even our ASMR Healing Hands, which also benefits from Healing of Hope a little bit, we would be sitting at 944 hit points of healing potential over a 3-fight, 1 short rest adventure day. That's amazing. To be fair, still a little bit less than that old Ultimate Healer build was doing, still mostly as a result of the changes to Disciple of Life plus Aura of Vitality and changes to the Healer feat, but it's only about like 60 hit points less, 6%. So that's great news. As Cure Wounds gets better and better with higher level castings, we are closing that gap that results from the Healer feat and Disciple of Life nerfs. We're in a fantastic place at this level, and it's only going to get better. At level 10, with our most important Druid features in place, I think we've got a decision to make. Stay Druid or go back to Cleric. Druids probably have a better, more diverse spell list, I think, overall. But there's one new high-level spell in particular that I've got my eye on that's fantastic for healing, support, that Druids don't get, but Clerics do. And Divine Intervention got a massive buff. Plus, we're already more invested into Cleric at this point, meaning we'll be able to get to those higher-level spells more quickly if we go back to Cleric. So I think that's what I would do, at least for the purposes of our build today. Feel free to stick with Druid if you want, especially if you're looking for a little more utility and control with all of the healing that you're doing. I should mention, Chalice form would get an additional buff once you got to, is it Druid 10? And Cosmic Omen is a great feature from, Stars Druid level 7. So lots of reasons to go Druid. Staying Stars Druid is a great idea. But for the reasons I've said, I'm going to go back to Cleric. I think you're going to be good either way. Assuming we're a Cleric 7 now, though, that means we get Blessed Strikes. 1 level earlier than we used to get it. This says that we can choose to either do an extra D8 of damage with our weapon attacks going forward, or add our wisdom modifier to cantrip damage with cleric cantrips. I'd take the latter there, potent spellcasting, unless I were maybe using Shillelagh regularly to do some weapon attack damage when not healing. But later on, our healing potential increases if we go that route. So yeah, potent spellcasting. And then we would get some really fantastic 4th level cleric spells. Life clerics get Aura of Life and Death Ward for free. Death Ward's really good. Lasts 8 hours without concentration and lets whoever you cast it on just go to 1 hit point instead of 0 the first time they would drop to 0. With as much healing as we are bringing, I'm not positive that I'd want to cast this all of the time though, honestly, but maybe. Aura of Life is really cool. It requires concentration, so it's situational, but I love that any ally inside the aura just automatically regains 1 hit point at the beginning of their turn if they're at 0. Kind of leans way into the old whack-a-mole playstyle, but it's efficient if nothing else, since getting 1 hit point on their turn guarantees that your ally is going to get to do something with their turn before the enemy drops them again, right? Other than these spells though, you could consider Aura of Purity as also a concentration aura, but super helpful against monsters that are going to be poisoning, blinding, charming, deafening, frightening, paralyzing, or stunning, as it gives advantage on saves against those things. The Divination spell has some nice utility potential, same with Freedom of Movement, and Banishment offers some strong single target control, especially against beings from other planes, right? But yeah, go ahead, pick your favorites. At level 11, we would be a Cleric 8, and that means we get another feat, and in the interest of healing as much as possible, let's bump our wisdom here, capping it at 20. Don't forget we get a 6th level spell slot now too. At level 12, we would be a Cleric 9, and that means 5th level Cleric spells, and we get another slew of good ones. Life Clerics get Greater Restoration to cure just about anything that Lesser Restoration couldn't, and Mass Cure Wounds for free, which is buffed over the 2014 version, healing for 5d8 to each target now instead of 3d8, though the scaling is the same, like Mass Healing Word. Should I assume that we are using that for our 5th level spell slots and up now? If you're hitting at least 3 allies with it, it would heal more than Cure Wounds in total, but I don't know. I'm already making generous assumptions about our channel divinity for healing, and we do have the ability to spread some healing around among multiple targets if need be, thanks to the chalice form. Feels like stretching things a little too far to be constantly spamming Mass Cure Wounds with 5th level spells and up. It's a good tool to have if we need it, but I'm not going to assume that we always will. Otherwise, pick your favorite 5th level spells here. Raise Dead if they've been dead more than a minute, and so Revivify wouldn't work, right? Hallow can be really amazing if you've got 24 hours to set it up, or sure, if you're a Cleric 10, Maybe. More on that in a sec. Gesh can be useful. Flame Strike is pretty solid area of effect damage. But then yeah, at level 13, we'd be a Cleric 10, and that means we get Divine Intervention. And this is a big reason to, go back to Cleric instead of stay Druid. Especially if, yes, your DM plays it rules as written and lets you cast the Hallow spell with Divine Intervention, right? Because as I've talked about in a previous build, yes, Divine Intervention now lets you call on your deity to cast any cleric spell of 5th level or lower with a single action, so long as that spell doesn't require a reaction to cast. It seems like such a strange restriction. Not sure why they didn't say any spell that takes an action or a bonus action to cast is what's available to us, or something. But anyways, yeah, this means you could cast Hallow with an action instead of needing 24 hours to cast it, and that can, among other things, to give enemies in a huge area vulnerability to a damage type of your choice, which is what all of us D&D YouTubers are ranting about these days. If this flies at your table, enjoy the incredible power boost for your party and feel free to beeline to Cleric 10, right? For the rest of us, it's still a really great ability. A free 5th level Cleric spell once per day, come on. Even if we're just using it for Cure Wounds, which might seem a little silly, it's a really big power boost. We do get a 7th level spell slot at this level too. So let's check in for a healing report here at level 13. Since last check, we have gained up to 7th level spell slots, capped our wisdom modifier, gained some more cleric levels, which is beneficial for our channel divinity, and picked up the very potent divine intervention ability, as well as some nice additional support, control, utility, and even damage options. Altogether, our total healing, under the same assumptions as before, would be 1,564 hit points of healing in a day, and compared to that old ultimate healer build, operating under the same assumptions, we're beating them by almost 200 hit points of healing now. And they even got to the heal spell by this level because they only needed 2 levels in Druid to get their subclass, right? Under 2014 rules. So yeah, thanks largely to that scaling on Cure Wounds and the extra 5th level spell slot combined with the awesome power of Beacon of Hope, we are putting out more holy power than the entire Pantheon put together. Let's go. All right, cool. Let's see just how high we can climb when we get to the end. At level 14, we would be a Cleric 11, and that means we get 6th level Cleric spells. I think the go-tos have to be Hero's Feast for one of the best buffs in game, but then, yeah, for our purposes, the heal spell. But using heal is in no way the go-to move for us anymore, like we've kind of talked about, right? As a 6th level spell, it heals for about 90 hit points when you pile on Chalice Form, Disciple of Life, and Blessed Healer. Call it 95 if we're using Beacon of Hope. Most of the healing is flat healing, right? So Beacon of Hope doesn't benefit the spell very much. By contrast, using a 6th level spell slot for Cure Wounds, if you've got Beacon of Hope active, heals for 130 hit points. Holy crap. And the gap between them just widens as we potentially upcast both spells. Now sure, if you're not using Beacon, heal does heal for a little bit more. And then, yeah, you'd get a lot of mileage out of Aura of Vitality. But overall, our healing potential with Beacon active just outweighs what Aura of Vitality can do, especially with the Disciple of Life nerf. That said, heal scales 10 more for every level you upcast it, and importantly, cures blinded, deafened, and poisoned. So if you really need to get rid of, one of those conditions and heal someone, sure, cast heal. Good to have in your back pocket. But definitely less potent than Cure Wounds now if we're using Beacon of Hope, talking about just raw healing power. Of course, you might not be able to get into range to cast Cure Wounds, right? Heal has a 60-foot range. But guess what? Healing Word with Beacon of Hope active heals for 78 for us as a 6th level spell right now. That's crazy. So if you'd rather use your bonus action than your action, and you don't need to cure a condition, but you're far away from your ally, and your familiar's not on them, Healing Word might be the better option, then heal even. Again, with Beacon active. At level 15, we would be a Cleric 12, and we get another feat. I think I'm probably taking Resilient Constitution here. Beacon of Hope is doing so much work that we probably should have taken this earlier, honestly, even though we did get Warcaster. I'm glad to have it now. We do also have an 8th level spell slot now at this level too. At level 16, we would be a Cleric 13, and that means 7th level Cleric spells. I really wanted to get to this level in Cleric because it means we get the cool new Power Word Fortify spell. I love this spell. It lets us dole out a whopping 120 temporary hit points that we can divide up as we see fit amongst 6 creatures. It's kind of awesome. I'd love to have this to add like a nice buffer to everyone before jumping into a really tough fight. That said. How much does a 7th level Cure Wounds heal for if we've got Beacon of Hope active? Try at 148 hit points. That is nuts. But yeah, the vast majority of that is going to a single target, so it might be overkill. I think Power Word Fortify is a good option to have when you don't need to heal a single ally for 130 plus hit points. And I would likely use it with my 7th level spell slot more consistently, I think, whether before a fight or when you've got like a couple of allies that are around half health or something, right? But primarily to like buff everybody up before going into a fight, I think, because if we needed to just heal multiple allies, especially with Beacon of Hope active, and because of the buff that it got, Mass Cure Wounds is going to do more for us than Fortify would, just to like keep allies alive in the middle of combat. And then finally for us, at level 17, we would be a Cleric 14. And Clerics here get an improvement to the Blessed Strikes option we chose back at Cleric 7. We took Potent Spellcasting, so that means now, when we deal damage with a Cleric cantrip, we can give a creature temporary hit points equal to 2 times our Wisdom modifier. 10 temporary hit points, it's not amazing, but hey, every time we deal damage with a cantrip, that's honestly pretty nice. Little damage, little survivability when we've got nothing better to do. I'll take it. I don't think I'll try and account for this in the numbers though. I'm sure we would get some benefit from it, but if I'm assuming we're constantly casting Cure Wounds and using healer kits and Channel Divinity, etc. with our action, it's hard to assume that we're also casting a bunch of cantrips on our turn throughout the day, right? Finally, we do get a 9th level spell slot here at this level. Before the healing report, if we continued with this build on to level 20, sure. At level 19, you'd be Cleric 16, you'd get an epic boon, right? And then you could even go Druid 4 at character level 20 to get a 2nd epic boon. I'd probably take Boon of Spell Recall and Boon of Fate, and that would be pretty cool to have both of those. On the other hand, Cleric 17 gives you Supreme Healing, which basically gives you my favorite part about Beacon of Hope, doing max healing with your spells for free, letting you concentrate on something else. To say nothing of getting 9th level Cleric spells, right? Power Word, Heal. Altogether, we're probably better off going Cleric 17 than we would be getting a 2nd epic boon, I think, but you decide. Anyways, at level 17, it's time for our final healing report. Since last check, we've picked up an 8th and 9th level spell slot and lots of fun additional versatility, buffing power, and defense. Altogether, if we burned everything but our 3rd level spell slots for Cure Wounds and concentrated on Beacon of Hope, we would be able to put out 2,010 hit points of healing in a 3 combat, 1 short rest day. Insanity. And yeah, beating out that old Ultimate Healer build by about 150 hit points. So let's bring it on home with some final thoughts. I'm not giving a tier score here, but I guess if you want to compile all of the healing that this build was capable of doing at levels 6, 9, 13, and 17, and add it up and compare it to the totals from the Ultimate Healer 1.0, we'd get 5,124 from this one compared to 4,978 from the old one. I'm not sure that those numbers are particularly meaningful, but what I think we can fairly safely say is that even with the change to the healer feat and the fact that Disciple of Life doesn't buff Aura of Vitality like it used to, among others, the buffs to Cure Wounds and Healing Word can really help close that gap at early levels and then outpace the healing capacity later on. And you know what? That's probably a really good thing, right? Because if you think about it, in the early game, we're probably a lot more likely to be okay with 2d6 healing per round from Aura of Vitality and an occasional Cure Wounds or Healing Word or Healing Hands or even Healer's Kit usage, right, to keep allies in fighting shape. But later on, when we're fighting ancient dragons and Tarrasques and liches, it's more likely that we'll need to drop 80 to 120 hit points of healing in a single go once in a while. And under 2014 rules, I'm not sure that the scaling on healing spells, even the heal spell itself, necessarily kept up with the bursty damage potential that a lot of enemies were capable of throwing out at higher levels. In the end, I think I feel pretty confident that if you or someone at your table really wanted to play a character who mostly healed, they'd probably be able to pull off keeping your entire party at a relatively high level of health throughout the adventuring day than they ever used to be able to under 2014 5e rules. Depending on your table, depending on number of combat encounters, etc., of course, as always. And I mean, There's no reason why this build would have to actually spend all of their spell slots and actions on healing, right? I'd guess that in most combat encounters, you'd be fine throwing out some cantrips for damage fairly regularly. Or sure, maybe foregoing additional healing power to concentrate on an Entangle or a Spirit Guardians. And I love that, especially thanks to the buffs that our most basic and important healing spells got. Doing that will be even easier than ever, whether you're trying to play the ultimate healer or a character who just wants to heal once in a while. And in my opinion, that's going to make playing a healing support focused character better than ever. Anyways, that's the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun putting this one together. I learned a ton. I had to recrunch numbers and rewrite the script several times. But yeah, it was a great exercise. I hope you know how much I love you. You guys are so awesome. Thank you so much for all that you do for me, for the channel. I hope that you have a great day and a fantastic week. And if you don't, man, I hope you hang in there, because better days are sure to come. I hope you have a happy Halloween if you're watching this before or during Halloween, and that you stay safe and that you do good and that you be kind, and that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. Come on, skinny love, just last the year. Pour a little salt, we will never hear. My, 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 my. Who will love you? Who will fight? Who will fall far behind? I'm not the world's biggest Bon Iver fan. In fact, that's probably the only song that I know well, which feels like a shame. I obviously, I love that song. It is hauntingly beautiful. But I don't really know much of their other stuff. So help me remedy that. What am I missing? What's your favorite stuff that I need to check out? Skinny Love is that one, and yeah, that's my favorite, but I mean, it's probably the only song that I could name the title of theirs. Why do I do that? If I love something so much. Oh. Isn't this light interesting, right? I tried to make the light behind me kind of an indigo, but it's either purple or blue, depending on what my key light is doing. I'm trying to find that indigo medium. This works. Oh my goodness, fall is in the air. I gotta put on the flannel and light the apple cinnamon candle. It's raining outside and I'm so happy. Or if you just really like theory crafting, or if you're looking for a really loud helicopter overhead that I'm assuming the mic is picking up, so I have to just wait for it to pass. Okay, so let's just say, but I do think it's fun to just try and did I do that right when I was crunching numbers? Crap. Shoot. I think I miscalculated something. Hold, please. And we're back. Had to do a little number adjusting. Okay, so as a Cleric 7, then we'd get the Blessed Strikes feature one level earlier than we used to get it. Gosh dang it. Now I'm thinking, since I don't even end up using the heal spell or power word fortify, the numbers would look better if I went back to Druid, because Chalice form goes from 1d8 to 2d8, and that's not a lot, but it's 8 more every time I cast a spell. Oh shoot. No, Divine Intervention is so good. Divine Intervention might make up for it. Okay, feel free to go Druid if you want, especially if you're looking for a little more utility and control with all of the healing you're doing. We get another slew of great ones. And we're done.